Hello again and welcome to the Fat Feminist Witch podcast, the show where I do a little ranting, raving, and wand waving. My name is Paige, as always, I am your host, and today I am interviewing Andi Grace again this year from Witch Cabinet. She also writes for Little Red Tarot, and she has a new Magical Boundaries course, Hawthorn Heart. Actually, it's the second round of Hawthorn Heart. It's starting this weekend for the new moon. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can go to witchcabinet.com to sign up. Or listen to the interview here and listen to Andi talk about it. We also talk about living that van life and having to give up on a life you thought you were set for the rest of your life, having to change your plans. We talk about being an online entrepreneur and also about boundaries, especially when it comes to family members. And she recently wrote an incredible letter to her mother that asserts her boundaries and posted some of the parts on Facebook and on her website at Witch Cabinet. So I definitely recommend checking that out. So without further ado, here is Andi Grace talking about Hawthorn Heart. Yeah, so you've been having kind of a wild year. You've been living in your van. Your camper van.
I used to live on a farm, and it was really wonderful, and I was in a relationship that had a lot of beautiful pieces to it, and one of those pieces was learning how to leave when it wasn't working anymore.
Yeah.
And it was very hard and very full of grief. And people reactions to my choice to leave really ranged from kind of turning away and just kind of neglecting, like not wanting to look at it, to a sort of voyeurism of, like just like the watching the car wreck sort of thing, to like actual just like straight up cruelty, like people just being really, really mean. And I lived in a yurt on an island off the coast of BC and got hypothermia, and then lived with my mother, which was a trip and a half. And she and we're sort of taking a break right now from having a close relationship after that. Yeah. And I actually published on my blog, excerpts from a letter that I wrote to my mother. She's very upset that I published it. But in the letter, I actually talk about how doing what I think she would like so that she will be happy and approve of my choices actually holds me back from like living my most authentic life. And because I do so much work around boundaries, like one of my main projects is my boundary class, Hawthorn Heart. Setting boundaries with your family and your parents is like one of the hardest. It was kind of the like Olympian version of all of the other boundaries that I set this year, was to set those boundaries with my mother. And I knew that it would resonate with people if I published pieces of the letter. And I've gotten a bunch of emails from people being like, I read the letter and I cried can I send this letter to my mom? Like, very, so I think she will, I hope she will come around at some point. But and then I transitioned to living in my camper, and I wrote a piece about it on Little Red Tarot about how much I hated it initially because people perceive living in a van or I'm in a camper on the back of an old farm truck, so I can actually stand up in my camper. And it has like a kitchen and a solar panel, and I've done a lot of work to actually make it basically like a tiny home on wheels. But at first I really hated it for a lot of because I didn't really feel like it was this choice I was making to fucking be Instagram ready or whatever. It was like it was something that was really like, I can't live in the place that I grew up. I can't go back to the place where my ex is because it became quite abusive by the end, and I don't really think it would be okay for either of us to be sharing space. They made it very clear that they don't want to share space with me.
Yeah.
They got me fired from a job. They really, really don't want to share space with me. So we it kind of was in a place of being like, well, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, I have this house on the back of my truck, and I did a bunch of repairs on it, and I painted it, and I got a solar panel, and now I'm enjoying it, but it's been quite hard to find places to park.
Yeah, that is hard. That's super hard. Are you still in the British Columbia area? Like, are you on the island?
No, I went to a different province recently to go visit with some friends, and it's allowed me to sort of bounce back from all the stuff that's happened and really, really solidify some of the harder boundaries that I needed. Like this whole year has been me going from essentially like wanting to die. I was so traumatized and so just having in so much grief to setting a lot of boundaries and doing a lot of grieving to now be in a place where I'm like doing way better and feeling way better. And some of the biggest, hardest work I needed to be around friends who really saw and supported me. So I went to go be with some close friends, and now I'm about to go back to BC. I have to drive through the forest fires that are happening there.
That's part of the reason I asked, actually, is because if you're camping out, or if you're living outside in the camper, be careful with those forest fires for sure.
Yeah, it's smoky in the province I'm in right now.
Yeah, my brother lives in Alberta, and he said it's smoky and raining ash there. So.
Yeah, and I lived in a community that had forest fires a couple of years ago. I wrote a poem about it, so I have some awareness of how to navigate that. But it's a very interesting time to be living in my car.
Yeah,
and I think my plan at this point is to go out to the coast, and then I'm going to launch another round of Hawthorn Heart in the fall. And then I think I might go to Costa Rica.
There you go.
I was farming, and farming is very like, I'm here forever. I'm not going anywhere. And now I have this mobile home on the back of it. My partner is a Cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm a Sag many times over. He also actually has loads of Sag in his chart, but he just jokes about how we have this like mobile Cancer Sag house. It's like super nest that we've put all this work into making it be very nesty, but it's very nimble, moving from place to place. So we think we're going to go, once the puppies are able to go to their new homes, we're gonna go spend some time on the beach and then come back, and I think I want to start farming again, but I'm kind of giving myself some time before I jump into that, because that is like the most deeply profound, committed relationship you can have, I think, to be farming and gardening and growing all your own food.
Yeah. Yeah, living on the land is a big commitment, and it's one that you shouldn't like enter into lightly. It's almost like getting married. Like you take responsibility for how the land does, and the land kind of takes responsibility for you, and you take responsibility for how well it takes care of you. It's not something you can just decide you don't really love in a couple of months. It's hard.
Yeah, and in a way, I feel really grateful that, it is my absolute most favorite thing to live in a place where I can swim in the water and drink the water and eat food from the place and gather medicine from the place where I live. Like, that is my absolute most heartful, cannot imagine a happier way to be. And it's a deeply consuming relationship where I feel really grateful. Like, my business originally was, I sold herbal medicine, which I love, but I was working more than full-time for less than minimum wage, and now I'm really shifting towards more, my business is completely digital. I actually just stopped doing tarot card readings and herbal consultations, not because I don't love the work, but because the burnout that I've had this past year. I've been like, okay, and also I'm living in an off-grid van where I have inconsistent internet access, right? So I'm now shifting towards more passive income, and oh my God, it's so nice.
Yeah, doing a little bit more digital work is kind of nice. I know I recently started a group through Patreon, because I didn't like, bringing in money, and it's so nice not to have to ship so much stuff out and do so much like physical and like digital work just to get paid less than minimum wage. And
totally.
like not be sure I'm not making money at all. And this way, like in a group, I get to communicate with other people. And I'm sure in Hawthorn Heart, that's really great because you get to communicate with other people and like you learn things while you're making money. So it's always feeling worthwhile.
Yeah, Hawthorn Heart is I mean, I can explain a bit about what it is, which is that it's a 12-week online course about boundaries. And I've taught it a bunch of different times in a bunch of different ways. This is the longest offering that I've made of it so far, and I think the flow of it is the best of any. I mean, hopefully each time it gets better, right?
Yeah.
But what's neat about Hawthorn Heart is that you can. So it's a class where you're learning practical boundary skills, but also you're learning magical boundaries, like protection magic. And I did a survey of the folks who follow my work recently, and I was asking what projects they wanted to see me do, and I also had taught a workshop called Body Poetic, which is using... Can you hear the puppies?
Yeah, I can hear them. Little puppies back there. I want to pet them all.
Yeah, I know. It's the puppy pile is it's an inspiring thing to watch. I want to be in there. But, I did this survey where I got 100 responses, and I was asking, what workshop did folks want to see me offer? And I was really surprised. I put Body Poetic in there, which is my workshop wherein I teach people the skills that I've learned from other folks and have developed myself to use creative practice as a means of healing trauma.
Yeah.
For me, I do that mostly through writing. They're supportive of this idea. But I think you could use the same principles for art, dance, music, whatever your creative practice is.
Yeah.
And there was an equal number of people who wanted to see me offer Hawthorn Heart as they wanted to see me offer Body Poetic. So I combined them I'm putting some of the creative prompts into Hawthorn Heart.
Oh, so that's really exciting. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so folks are going to get to do, like, for example, that letter that I wrote to my mother, that's actually one of the prompts is in the section where we talk about, like, family and intergenerational ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
The creative prompt is to write a letter to a family member. And that family member could be dead or alive. You don't have to actually send them the letter.
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is amazing how, like, when I publish this letter, I'm getting some really amazing responses from people. And I think that it's interesting to be teaching a class about boundaries where I'm doing like a business marketing class right now, which is amazing. It's called Thrill. It's offered by Carolyn Elliott, who I love. She's a great teacher.
Oh, I love her website.
Yeah, her stuff is great. She's definitely she takes a bit of a different angle in terms of, she's a lot less political than some of the other teachers that I resonate with, but I find that there's a very anti-patriarchy streak to lots of her work and lots of her students' work, but
yeah, there's lots of badass witchcraft on her website and like badass witches that write for her. Even if it's not always very political, it still like fuels that same kind of like place inside you. It's still that same kind of motivation. Yeah, totally. And I've actually found it like kind of nice to have a teacher who's not super grounded in the anti-O perspective, and it's not because obviously I super value anti-oppression, but I also feel like there are ways that censorship plays into those values, even if we don't want to, I think it's coming out more and more and more with like articles about excommunication and sort of the Church of Social Justice, all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
And it's nice in a way to learn from a teacher who I don't think feels as bound by the pressures of those ideas, to see, because she says things sometimes where I'm just like, whoa, I would never say that. But then I feel like I enjoy, even if I don't agree necessarily with what she said, I haven't necessarily noticed her say something that I'm like, that's like actually really, really harmful or whatever. So it's interesting to watch her navigate not coming from such a political perspective, but then so many of her students really are. Like, I've noticed being in her Facebook group that I'll post things and people will be like, you know, oh, this is culturally appropriative or whatever. I won't necessarily post something that's culturally appropriative, but other people in the group will post things and watch them respond with this really great political analysis. So I really love her work, and I think that, like, I include some of her shadow integration stuff in my course, obviously giving credit to her for that. So the class touches on loads of things. It touches on magic, touches on abuse. There's a lesson in this round about digestion and the relationship between boundaries and how it affects our digestive system. Lots of creative prompts. And I think, in the last year, it's been interesting because I really have put those principles and practices to work in my life. And I don't think I would have been able to do it the same way if I was farming. Yeah. Because what happened was that I went through a trauma of leaving this relationship and losing the relationship that I had with this baby who was about to come into the world. And I was so broken and so wrecked, and I was getting emails from people saying, do you want to read my cards? Do you want to this? Do you want that? And I was like, no. Yeah. I can't do this. Like, I can't go longer than 20 minutes without crying, and I can't unload that onto my clients. So, and I had a couple of passive income things on my website at that time, and I really started to have deeper and deeper gratitude for them. And now, you know, it's amazing to, most nights I go to sleep and I wake up and I've made money in my sleep.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing. Like, it's not, and at first I was like, oh my God, am I becoming a capitalist? Like, should I feel guilty about this?
I've had this exact convo with myself.
Yeah, and you know, I think the conclusion I have come to about it is that I believe, so first of all of my projects donate money to either individuals, mostly all BIPOC folks, and generally with some kind of a queer or gendered slant. So Hawthorn Heart, this round, the money is being donated to a community database for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. All of my projects generate money for community, and I also, I have debt that I need to pay off, and I'm not in a place of I've really been having to work through what my concept of financial abundance is, because I think about how, you know, the money that I earn, a lot of it gets donated, both through the official streams of whatever the project donates to, but also giving money to community groups. And I think it's okay for me I've had to really give myself permission to be it's okay that I make money doing what I love. Yeah. It's okay that I have a schedule where I can get up when I want and sleep when I want. And I struggle with insomnia, so I can work at night and schedule my posts at other times when other people will see them, you know, it allows me to meet my needs in a way that I have never been able to do before. And I think I create something of value to other people, because I don't think people would be signing up and be giving me money. They choose to do that, right? No one's forcing them to participate in my offerings, right? So I've had to really work through a lot of that and be sort of it's okay for me to make money doing what I love.
Yeah, it's intense how easy it is for us to feel guilty for working and making money and supporting ourselves, because money is just so, it's such a frustrating concept. It simultaneously helps us live and creates most of the political problems we have. And it's hard to, especially as a spiritual person, give yourself permission to make money. And to just keep money and spend money.
Being okay with that, where my title for myself at my business is I call myself the Empress Hermit Witch. Yeah. And what I love about that is that when I think about the Empress in tarot, it's the Empress in a lot of ways is sort of the archetypal mother or nurturer. But I also secretly, the secret wink to myself is oh, I'm building this empire on the internet, you know. And it's and I've really had to learn to just have not take myself so seriously and be able to be I'm allowed to like be making money, doing what I love, and have a sense of financial security. And I need to trust myself that I will do good things with that money. You know, I'm not going to become like this like overbearing 1%er or something, you know, like I'm gonna feed myself and take care of my dog and buy gifts for my friends and give money to community and make my van function better. And I'm gonna grow food and I'm gonna make medicine and I'm gonna do Indigenous solidarity and I'm gonna find a way to live a good life where I give back, and the money can allow me to do that. And one of the things that I've noticed is that it creates two different reactions in people. Like, one reaction is people being like, why are you asking for money for this? And me being like, well, because I need to eat.
I need to literally survive. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to eat. I need to pay my student loans so that my truck doesn't get taken away from me to leave my house. You know, like, I need to meet my basic needs. But also, the other reaction that I get is people really loving it and being like really wanting to give me money because they want my work to succeed, and they want people doing work similar to my work to succeed, because when we are doing the work that we love, you know, whatever capacity we can, and if we're monetizing it and if we're not having to work in jobs that we hate, we are able to take care of ourselves in a different way and be more authentic. And have you read The Fifth Sacred Thing?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Have you read The Fifth Sacred Thing or City of Refuge by Starhawk?
No, actually, I haven't.
Her perspective of like what the economy would look like is very close to what I envision, like what I would love an economy to look like, which is essentially like the short sort of version of it is that there's like minimum, like everybody has to do certain tasks, you know, like there's like people need to build the gardens and they need to take care of babies and they need to do, you know, whatever the kind of basic tasks are to keep the keep the society functioning. But then they also kind of get to choose a path of whatever it is that they do, so they can be artists and they actually get these like tokens which disappear after 6 months, and they have to be used to go out and eat food or participate in the arts. And no one pays for housing because everybody gets housing. No one pays for like sort of the basic things they need to meet their needs, and nobody can save. So you don't actually, and the idea is that it encourages everybody to, everyone's needs are met and everyone is encouraged to create. And I think that magical small business or whatever types of small business like really can function to create some of the beginnings of those infrastructures. And as much as I do identify as an anarchist in lots of ways, I feel like it's okay to run a business. It's okay to make money and set my own schedule. Like, that does give me a deeper kind of freedom that I've never had before. And I do good things with that freedom. I create good things that have value for the people who follow my work, and I love doing it, and I think it shows in my work.
Yeah, I think that's what's important to remember when you're doing stuff like this. Like, I recently had to talk live about this stuff, and I was like, you know, I was talking about how I quit my job to do this, and because I just can't, I'm struggling to go back to working and dealing with a regular work environment where I'm making money for someone else who I probably don't even think I really want to support. And, you know, I'm hawking stuff I don't like, and it's just the kind of person that I am doing what I do now is a better person than I was when I was working at these other jobs. Like, I'm more able now to be a better person, to be more present, and to cause more, like, real change in the world than I ever was before. And I have less money to do that, but I feel like I'm just more spiritually and emotionally capable of actually going out and doing that because I'm not worn out from everything else that I have to do. It really is like, it's just totally different. I have a totally different way of life now than I did before.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's interesting because I've talked to a lot of folks where a lot of people had said to me, you know, that I have to acknowledge my privilege, which I do. Yeah. You know, I do need to acknowledge that I have privilege in that, but and I've made choices where I have, because, you know, within my family structure, a privileged security is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and I have chosen to make some sacrifices around security to have a different level of freedom, and I'm learning how to build that security myself. And I remember I did a workshop once with Kim in Milan about, it was about like ethical small business, and she was talking about how the biggest growing like area of entrepreneurs is actually Black women.
I believe that.
And so and the reason for that is that they're like within a lot of their communities to do work that they love, that supports them, where they make money to be able to support the people that they love. Like a lot of those jobs just like don't exist. And so they're creating them for themselves. And so I think that it's not just, I think that it is true that there are, you know, douchey sort of hyper-privileged trust fund entrepreneurs. Those people do exist. And there's also people who really are, like for me, it's that I'm a writer, right? Like that's what I love to do. I love to write and I love to make medicine and I love to grow and cook food. And I found, and I'm a witch, and I've found ways to monetize all of those things. And it gives me a sense of freedom that I didn't have before. And because I get paid to do what I love, I have more time and capacity to produce things that are of value to the community. Like the other project that I'm working on, once Hawthorn Heart is done, I'm going to launch another zine. Because one of the things that I do is I produce digital zines. And
I'm excited for another zine.
Yeah, so the new zine, the first two that I made, there's three on my website. There's my personal poetry book. There's the We Believe You, Fem's Surviving Toxic Masculinity, which is just epic. It's like very long and has many submissions. This type font was, I think, way too small looking back on it now. I try to make the font of my things readable on a phone now.
Yeah.
But it's like a size 13 font and it's like 126 pages. It's like a book, basically.
Yeah.
And
I have it on my phone, but I do read it on my phone. And my phone screen is like cracked and stuff, and I can still read it on my phone. So it is a little bit small, but it's totally readable on the phone. So for those of you who are listening, you can totally get it on your phone and read it. I honestly open it up and look through it and look through some of the stuff that I remember is in there every time I need it. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I heard that from multiple folks.
Yeah.
And the next one that I made was called Soother, which didn't really take off in quite the same way as We Believe You did. And I think it's because it was more, I think one, it was because I didn't promote it as well as I could have, because I had a lot of stuff going on. But I think it was also just like, it was a more tender, to be honest with you, I actually think, I wouldn't say that Soother is better, but Soother is more like, it is a really embodied experience to read it in like a deep sort of root chakra kind of way. Like it is like, because it's about grieving family and fertility. So there's stories about abortion. There's a story that I wrote in it called Birth Chart, where I took 3 different aspects from my birth chart and I wrote pieces of the story of my breakup, and compared them to aspects in my birth chart. There's like astrological things, like an astrological kind of list of how to grieve, which is a really beautiful piece. The whole thing is just like, a lot of people have said to me that they started to read it and they're like, I can't even, they're like, most of the time they get less than 5 pieces through and they just start bawling and they just can't.
It's a little too intense, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a very moving collection. They both are. I think We Believe You is a little more like angry fist in the air, kind of fuck the patriarchy. They're like, no. And Soother is just like, all right, let's talk about the like deep grief that, because people don't want to talk about the grief that they have around fertility.
Yeah. And
especially in queer circles, it's like very, I know that for me, like when I lost this relationship with this baby, I remember talking to my counselor about it, and she was like, you know that everything you're describing is exactly like it's describing a miscarriage. She's like, you're not having the physical loss, but all the other things that you're describing are exactly like that. And it's very difficult to grieve a physical miscarriage as a straight woman. Yeah. Wherein their most resources exist. But if you're a non-gestational queer parent grieving what is essentially a miscarriage to a kid who is alive, but who you don't have a relationship with in the way that you would like, you can't Google that. So, it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. So, that's not real. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So So that's what Soother is. And then the next one that I'm making, I think I'm going to call it Scorpio Rising.
Nice.
Because my Venus is in Scorpio, and my partner teases me all the time about, and I'm like, I want to understand what this means to be a Scorpio, but I know that one of the qualities of Scorpios is this like incredible capacity to be regenerative.
Yeah.
And in the survey that I did, I made a bunch of suggestions of what zine topics, and this topic won by like a massive landslide, which was that people wanted to coordinate a zine about how to heal after leaving an abusive relationship.
Yep.
And it's really funny because my work so often reflects, like, it's interesting because they say, you know, like if you're doing kind of like helping work, that you really need to not like use your clients or whatever to like therapize yourself, which I totally get, because that can lead to like a weird codependent relationship where it's, you know, it's not appropriate. But I will definitely say that for sure, like my work, I write about like my deepest, darkest, most real, brutal trauma. Like I published a letter I wrote to my mother recently, right? Like, I'm very, and this is exactly what's been happening to me over the last year, is that I left a relationship that was very tumultuous and very painful. And I've had a lot of moments of just feeling like a zombie person and feeling like I literally died, and watching some of the other people in my community leaving abusive relationships and just feeling like, how do you live after this? And
what's your secret?
yeah, you know, like, and I think that there's, you know, a lot of pieces in that, in terms of like people experiencing PTSD, people experiencing suicidality, people feeling like they have to move to a completely brand new place, like people losing their friends. Another really common one is people's friends dating their abusive exes. You know, like these are all things that are so common, and we are all, you know, so I want to produce a zine wherein we can talk about this stuff being real, and also talk about the strategies for how you get through that to the other side. And one of the things I'm excited about it personally because I love coordinating zines, but I feel excited about it because it's information that I am like also craving, right?
Yeah.
Like, most of the introductions to my zines are like, I made this because I wanted to read it.
That's basically my motivation behind everything I do at this point. Like if I'm reviewing a book, it's because I wanted to read the book. If I'm talking about something in a group, it's because I wanted to learn about that, and this gave me a reason.
Yeah. You know, and I think one of the things about because I tend to talk about the like really vulnerable trauma stuff, it's like I think people can sometimes will breathe a sigh of relief to be like, oh yeah, so good to be able to talk about this. Like I know with like publishing the letter to my mom, it's interesting because some people felt that I was like I know my mom felt it was like unfair for me to publish it, though I removed all the sort of personal details about her. Like it's really more, the letter is mostly about me feeling like my family doesn't know how to love me because I'm a queer person and I don't fit their mold and how I want them to love me, but I need to actually learn how to love myself. Like that's what the letter is about.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because what I notice is that intergenerationally, like a lot of the people in my generation, like I'm about to hit my Saturn return, so I'm like turning 29 at the end of this year, and I think a lot of us are like, we need to talk about this. And then we look at like to our parents, and also like interculturally it's different too, right? Like I mean, obviously someone who comes from like an immigrant family, more recently than my family is more of a settler family. They've been here for generations. But if you've come here more recently, like you're gonna have different family values from my white settler family, right? In terms of privacy, but privacy is something that runs through maintaining families cross-culturally, right? And it's interesting because I know that people liked that post because it made them breathe a sigh of relief to be able to be like, wow, someone else also feels this.
Yeah.
Someone else can talk about this. And it's interesting, like, I think all of my work is like that, right? All of my work is like, how do we talk about the most vulnerable stuff as a group?
That stuff really matters to people, because sometimes it's really hard to say out loud, but seeing someone else talk about it, knowing that someone else feels the same way you do and that they can feel comfortable saying it out loud, it can make all the difference in the world to someone else. Like, I loved your letter to your mother, or what was in there of it, especially because yesterday was my mother's birthday. And when I drew a card earlier in the week to tell me about, you know, every day in the week, the card I pulled for her birthday was the Queen of Swords, and I'm like, yeah, of course it is. So when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I needed this today. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's interesting because I really love my mom and have at times. My mom has been my best friend and my greatest ally, and my mom is an Aries with a Virgo moon, and I'm a triple fire sign. I'm like Sag, Leo, Sag. So we either get along like a house on fire, or we don't at all. Like, very, like, you know, and it's interesting because I think, you know, my mom craves privacy, and I actually crave openness and transparency and talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I find really challenging within my own family and even within my own friend group is that I think because we live in this kind, like, I'm a wordy person. Like, I very rarely write something that is under 1,200 words. Typically 2,000 to... The original letter I wrote to my mom was 5,500 words. It was long letter. And the thing is when you actually read the posted version, it's excerpts and it's been amended to be a bit more sort of poetic in terms of being like postable. Yeah. And the thing is, I think when you read it, I think if you actually slow down enough to absorb what I'm saying, you can see that I'm coming from a very vulnerable place of naming, like, you don't know how to love me in the way that I need. That's not your fault. Let's just get real about that. I need to learn how to love myself. I need to learn how to take care of myself. And I want to come back to this relationship being capable of taking care of you, and I can't do that right now, and I need to go take care of myself. I don't actually think there's anything in there. Like, it's interesting because when I'm watching people being triggered by it, I'm just like, I'm wondering, I'm like, what is it about this that is triggering for you?
Yeah.
You know, like, and one of my best friends said to me, my best friend was like, well, most likely by the time you publish something like that, you've processed it enough that if someone is upset, it's not really going to bother you because you've processed it. And on the one hand, that's true. There's one part of me that's like, oh, people are mad about it. It's controversial. Great. That means more people will share it and talk about it. And then there's like the inner child part of me that is like, oh God, my mom is mad.
Yeah, why don't you like my thing I made?
Oh yeah, it says that in the post. It says, like, in many ways I'm still the little kid in the living room begging you to watch me dance. I want you to see me, and I want you to love what you see.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's very true. Of course I want my family to love me. And I've realized in the last little while that wanting them to approve of me is really never going to work, because I'm never actually going to be able to do what they want, both because we live in a different time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my dad is a baby boomer and my mom is a generation after that. And I'm a, like, millennial, right? Like, we have we're intergenerationally on a different tip, right?
Yeah.
But also, I just am not, I want to live a life that is authentic, and I think it's hard for my family to see this, but I've held myself back from doing that in some ways to try to maintain certain types of good flow in my relationships with them. And it doesn't work. We still fight because I'm not doing either thing enough. I'm not being myself enough for me to be happy, and I'm not doing what they want enough for them to be happy. And so I've decided to choose myself. And I've kind of gotten to a point of being like, you know what? Maybe in a couple of years, we'll get to a place where maybe they won't like me, but I think that they'll respect me.
Yeah.
And I will like myself. And that's enough. That's gotta be enough.
It's just gonna have to be.
Yeah. They agree.
Yeah, it's just gonna have to be. Oh, hi, puppies. Hi, puppies. Oh my, so cute. So Sorry, I hear animals and I get distracted. I'm even looking at birds right now outside.
No, I know. I leaned closer to them so that you could hear
their little squeaks. All right, well, Hawthorn Heart, you're starting on the new moon, coming up really soon. So the last day to sign up is, late into Saturday the 22nd, as long as you want to get started at the right time.
Yeah, and if folks wanted to start later, like, I'm okay with that. It's really just, I don't necessarily feel you'd have
the full experience.
You wouldn't have the flow, like the whole, like I could just put Hawthorn Heart up as a passive income thing and be like, here, sign up for this. You get one email a week, and I don't do that because I think participation with the group, is valuable. And I also, at the end of this one, there's actually going to be a group ritual, and I'm contemplating seeing if folks want to submit the work that they've done throughout the course to produce a zine. So there's some group timing pieces but I mean, that's not until the end of the 12 weeks, right? So I think starting week 1 a little bit late would probably be okay. And again, it's up to, like, I think people are going to be the bosses of their own experience. So if you want to get the emails a little late, that's cool. And we don't need to have scarcity around it because I do intend to launch another round probably in the fall, I think.
Yeah.
So it will come around again.
Excellent. And what about the next zine? Do you have any idea when you're getting started on that?
Yeah, so my plan right now, and I will say that I have learned that it's good to be flexible with plans changing, and I'm trying to learn something that I write a lot for Little Red Tarot, and the person who founded Little Red Tarot, her name is Beth Maiden. I love her.
She's great.
I so deeply love and adore Beth, both her work and her as a person. Like, I love her very, very much. She's just wonderful. Like, frequently I get emails from her, and I'm just like, oh. Like, I just feel better about the world after talking to Beth. Like, she's so great. But I did a thing with her at the very beginning of launching my business where I kind of got her to look at my website and got her to give me advice. And one of the things that she said was, she's like, you need to learn to under-promise and over-deliver. Because as a fire sign, I'm super over-promise, under-deliver. Like, and I'm learning not to do that.
Yep.
So I will say, this is my plan right now. We will see how it actually unfolds in the life of real things. But my plan right now is to finish this launch of Hawthorn Heart, which I've really, really poured a lot of effort into launching it this time around. I've produced quite a bit of writing. And then once that's done, I'm going to be shifting into the 2 projects that I want to do in between the next round of Hawthorn Heart. One is that I want to create some kind of subscription service through my business wherein I get monthly reliable income. So I'm going to put a survey out. I'm contemplating, like, I might do like a separate email thread or like a private blog post or like a private podcast or like something that folks get extra value for.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm going to be putting out a survey for that at some point soon. And then the other thing that I'm going to be doing is launching the zine. So I think I might launch the zine first because there's a period of time where the zine is actually passive.
Yeah.
Where there's like a chunk of time where people are just writing. So I think it will be coming out the call will be coming out in the next little bit. And I think it will be, Soother, I finished Soother in about a month or 6 weeks. We Believe You took about 7 months because my life was just a total disaster. So, at the time.
It was a hard time.
Yeah, but also, the zine is better as a result.
It turned out amazing.
It's very raw and very real, and the piece that I wrote, I could not have written that piece if I had finished it in the first month. So I feel okay with it, but it took a while. It took a long time. But yeah, so sometime in the next in the next little bit, I will be launching both of those things in another round of Hawthorn Heart. And then my longer term goal is to launch a course similar to Thrill, but from my own angles, because, Carolyn Elliott, she does not have an LGBTQ focus in her niche.
Yeah.
Whereas I definitely have, I focus a lot on, working with queer folks and working with sex workers and working with femmes. That's definitely more, and people who have sort of radical anti-politics. So I want to do a witch business course.
For people with a more political and queer leaning.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm playing with the idea of calling it Witch Better Have My Money. And then I'm like, oh, but people might say that I'm not allowed to use a, Rihanna song title. And I'm like, oh, but it's such a good name,
Yeah.
It's okay, well, how can I balance this? Maybe I'll give a portion of the profits to Black Lives Matter. Or,
I actually found a gift that said that one time.
Because, it's confusing to figure out how do we, acknowledge, as white people, how do we, validate and acknowledge, Black genius without being appropriative,
I think you'd be okay.
It's such a good...
I think it's too good to pass up.
It's such a good title.
It's so great. And honestly, so is Rihanna, so I can't see anyone really having that much of an issue with it. I think it would be all right. And it would be awesome.
Yeah. So those are sort of what's coming up for me in the next little bit. But the most immediate thing is, Hawthorn Heart, which is starting. The first lesson's coming out this weekend. And folks can go on my Facebook page, which is Witch Cabinet Cauldron for Badass Femme Magic on Facebook. And then my website is www.witchcabinet.com. And when you go on the website, there's a pop-up where you can actually get the first 26 pages, or a 26-page preview of Hawthorn Heart. The preview is mostly talking about what I think makes an effective boundary.
Yeah, I have it open on my computer right now.
Yeah, so you can get that preview for free if you join my email list. And the email list you'll get all the updates on the zines and all the things that I am doing.
Yeah, I've been getting all your updates in my email, and I actually read them in my email. Most things I don't like to read in my email, but your emails are really good. They're actually readable on all my devices. So yeah, I've been reading all of your email updates. They're great.
Thank you. Yeah, I really try to. I mean, it's funny because it's yes, I am a writer and I'm, all these things, but I'm also I'm a huge, online small business nerd. So I'm constantly thinking about that stuff, how will this email land? Looking at my stats all the time. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I maintain a Pinterest board that shows my obsession. I look up internet marketing and social media and how all that stuff works every day. And sometimes I wish I talked about that, but I think there's enough blogs out there.
I think you have to love that stuff to be successful at. And the thing is and I'll let you go because I know we both can talk forever, but it's I think one of the ways I heard it explained to me once, I think it was Leonie Dawson, actually, who I watched a talk of hers where she said that good marketing is a form of empathy, wherein you're able to empathize with your audience and be what do you need? What are your problems? What are the things that I can offer that what will be of value to you? And I really love marketing for hippies, that's the person who does that. His name is Tad Hargrave. He is great. And he talks about how he used to be very kind of anti-capitalist in a let's break windows and blow stuff up, which I'm super down with in lots of ways. And his perspective is that, one of the ways that we can shift how capitalism functions is to support and create small business that meets our needs and allows us to have abundance. And I think that's different from saying small business is good capitalism or whatever. To me, I feel I'm living my life in a way where when stuff really starts collapsing, which the province that I grew up in is on fire right now. It's actively happening, is that I'm living in a way where I have created a network and I've created a way to support myself and take care of myself that supports and takes care of other people.
Yeah.
And I actually believe that is anti-capitalist, even if I'm like, I would love to live in a scenario where I didn't need money to survive, and that's just not the case. So for now, I'm gonna make money, and I'm gonna do something of value while I do it.
Yeah, it's socially sustainable work. You know what I mean? It doesn't just burn out all parties involved and leave you with, one little tiny thing. It's something that gives back and continues to grow and transform and provide. And it's a different kind of work. It definitely feels like the opposite of capitalism.
Yeah. And I think everyone is going to come to see it in whatever ways they want to see it. And I think that it's like, you know what? I need money to survive. And the reality is that my life is better and easier when I have more money than like just scraping by. Yeah. So I'm gonna let myself have that and celebrate that and be and I like, the truth is that I like succeeding and have my business succeed, and I think other people like that too. Yeah. And I want to help support other people to figure out how to do that, because I think it's possible to live a better, fuller, more creative life when you're doing work that you feel aligned with. And I think it is totally okay to make bank while you do it. Especially, especially if the money that you make goes to support more people than just you.
That's right. That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. And like, no one will ever convince me that I'm doing the same thing now than I was when I was working at a gas station or whatever. Like you can't convince me of that. It feels totally different, and like it gives back to society in a totally different way.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think we all, like, I super don't ever want to, like, from my own words, and this isn't a response to what you said, but I think I don't ever want to, like, I don't want to shame working class folks, and I think we have to, everybody, there's work that needs to be done that no one wants to do, generally.
Absolutely. Like, oh my God.
And it's like, how do we find ways to do what we love and keep things functioning? And like, how do we find, again, like, I really would highly suggest reading The Fifth Sacred Thing or City of Refuge, because Starhawk's idea about how to run an economy not in a capitalist system is like, it's great. I really, really love how she relates to that.
I'm actually really going to check it out. I'm reading a book about the fairy tradition right now, and it talks a lot about reclaiming. And I've been like, every time it mentions something about reclaiming and Starhawk, I'm like, this seems like something I absolutely need to read more about. I need to read more. Great. I need to read this girl's books. I need to figure this out.
Yeah. Starhawk is great. And Starhawk is great because she has, like, you can read, she has books where she has written about, like, how to do magic. She has a book that she wrote about facilitation, which I love, for, I can't remember the name of the Empowerment Manual, that's what it's called. Yeah. And then she also has fiction, like epic witch revolution fiction books. Yeah. Like, she's great.
She's a really interesting person, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Thanks. Yeah, it's good. It's slowly getting towards my goal. I feel like it's gonna hit it. I'm excited.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
All right, well, I will talk to you later. Good luck this weekend and enjoy the new moon.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Fat Feminist Witch podcast, and thank you to Andi for coming on the show again and talking to us about all of her upcoming projects, including Hawthorn Heart. If you're interested in learning more about Andi and about Hawthorn Heart and what she does, you can go to witchcabinet.com. You can also go to facebook.com/witchcabinet to find her there. And like her page, she posts updates about her work. She posts links to her other courses, including Hawthorn Heart, to her zines. She puts out calls for submissions for the zines that are upcoming. So follow her on Facebook there. And if you are a writer or an artist, or you like to contribute to zines, or you're thinking about it, I highly recommend getting in touch with Andi and finding out when her next project will be taking submissions, and seeing if you can share your thoughts and your feelings with the witchy and femme community at large. As someone who's been doing it for about 2 years now, I can highly recommend it. I love sharing what's going on and sharing my feelings with you guys. It really makes me feel better about everything that I feel, and it lets me know that I'm not alone out there. So I recommend trying it out. A few updates on me. You should go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/thefatfeministwitch. On Fridays at noon, I do a live video show, and I usually have kind of a ridiculous hair outfit going on. And I take... next week I am doing Ask a Fat Feminist Witch, and I am answering your questions live on camera. So send in your questions at fatfeministwitch@gmail.com, or through Facebook or Twitter or any other social network, and I will find it, and I will answer your questions live on the air. Like I said, if you have any questions for Andi, contact her at witchcabinet.com. And thank you again for listening, and for everyone for showing up today. I will have a new episode for you next week. It's actually going to be a talk that I gave that was recorded live at a local feminist festival recently. So that'll be coming your way next week. Thank you so much for tuning into the Fat Feminist Witch podcast. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a very magical and cleansing new moon.